Chapter 27. The Story. "First, sir," said Caderousse, "you must make me a promise." "What is that?" inquired the abbé. "Why, if you ever make use of the details I am about to give you, that you will never let anyone know that it was I who supplied them. For the persons of whom I am about to talk are rich and powerful, and if they only laid the tips of their fingers on me, I should break into pieces like glass." "Make yourself easy, my friend," replied the abbé. "I am a priest, and confessions die in my breast. Recollect, our only desire is to carry out, in a fitting manner, the last wishes of our friend. Speak, then, without reserve, and without hatred. Tell the truth, the whole truth. I do not know, may never know, the persons of whom you are about to speak. Besides, I am an Italian, and not a Frenchman, and belong to God and not to man, and I shall shortly retire to my convent, which I have only quitted to fulfill the last wishes of a dying man." This positive assurance seemed to give Caderousse a little courage. "Well, then, under these circumstances," said Caderousse, I even believe I ought to undeceive you as to the friendship which poor Edmond thought so sincere and unquestionable." "Begin with his father, if you please," said the abbé. "Edmond talked to me a great deal about the old man for whom he had the deepest love." "The history is a sad one, sir," said Caderousse, shaking his head. "Perhaps you know all the earlier part of it." "Yes," answered the abbé. "Edmond related to me everything until the moment in which he was arrested in a small cabaret close to Marseilles." "At La Réserve? Oh, yes, I see it all before me this moment. Was it not his betrothal feast?" "It was, and the feast began so gaily and had a very sorrowful ending. A police commissary, followed by 4 soldiers, entered, and Dante was arrested." "Yes, and up to this point I know all," said the priest. "Dante himself only knew that which personally concerned him, for he never beheld again the 5 persons I have named to you, or heard mention of any one of them. Well, when Dante was arrested, Monsieur Morel hastened to obtain the particulars, and they were very sad. The old man returned alone to his home, folded up his wedding suit, with tears in his eyes, and paced up and down his chamber the whole day, and would not go to bed at all, for I was underneath him and heard him walking the whole night. And for myself, I assure you I could not sleep either, for the grief of the poor father gave me great uneasiness, and every step he took went to my heart as really as if his foot pressed against my breast." Here we are in chapter 27, and here we go. I think we're gonna well, is this gonna be kind of okay, hold on, let me back up. We're gonna start to get some of the details that Dante never learned while he was in prison, but are we going to get a kind of Rashomon situation where we're going to get Caderousse's perspective, and then when we talk to Fernand, we're going to get Fernand's perspective, and then Mercedes' perspective, and they're all going to be slightly different stories with slightly different emphasis? Isn't that the kind of impossible situation Dante or anyone in a similar situation finds themselves when you're dealing? I feel like we even talked about this in a previous episode, where after 15 years, I think it's 15 at this point, 14 in prison, and now he's been a year free. After 15 years, you are relying on people's memories and how memories can change depending on the story that people tell themselves, that people tell others, that if you haven't done self-reflection, if you haven't really thought on it over the course of that 15-year period, are you going to be able to recollect the actuality of it, or are you going to be steeped in sentimentality, in remorse? How is all of that going to paint out the different portraits of what happened all that time ago that Dante will never actually have the full actual truth? Well, this is just the start of chapter 27, and I wonder if Dante is going to reveal himself to Caderousse by the end of this. Just how many stories are we going to get? There's a lot of characters that we need to catch up on. Although, okay, just pulling out a little line here where this chapter starts with Caderousse saying, I need you to promise me something that, I will tell you, but you have to promise that you won't say anything because for the persons I'm about to talk are rich and powerful, and if they only laid the tips of their fingers on me, I should break to pieces like glass. Well, that's got to be Danglars and Fernand, right? I mean, I don't think Caderousse knows about Villefort. I mean, he might have known of Villefort at the time, but there's no indication that anyone knows. In fact, it was Villefort's whole purpose was to conceal his purposes for imprisoning Dante the way that he did. So he's got to be talking about Danglars and Fernand. So they are rich and powerful now. Are we going to learn about them? Because Caderousse would have that perspective. I also want to just take a moment to call out something that came up on the Discord recently. There was I think it was in chapter 24, maybe even 23. Oh my God, it's been so long ago. A couple chapters ago, when Dante was finally free and he was able to acquire the ship, go take the treasure off of the island, conceal it in those little chambers. This is why I love this show and who it's reaching, because on the Discord, someone had mentioned that the translation they were reading was okay. Sorry, sorry to interrupt myself as I'm talking here. I wanted to look it up and make sure I was saying it exactly right. Chapter 25. Someone on the Discord said that they are reading in Slovenian and that it's a gendered language, which, English is not. So in reference to Dante looking at the island or looking at the ship and saying that he was going to, improve what was good about it and fix what was bad about it, I had mentioned that, is he going to be building an HQ on Monte Cristo? Is he going to be improving the island? And I want to just read this verbatim so that I don't misquote this, but it says, I believe the reference to studying it as skillful as a horseman would the animal applies to the yacht, not to the island. This person is reading it in Slovenian, which, quote, is a gendered language, and it is written in the feminine form. He was getting to know her, that is the yacht, not the masculine form, which would apply, which would imply the island. So this felt incredibly important to me, and I mean, to better understand the story, shows the kind of weird flexibility of language and the importance of translations. So I find that fascinating, and I also just want to point out how important the Discord is to helping keep me on track, because I can learn from all of you. I say this all the time, but I am not an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just experiencing the story for the first time, and hopefully you're along for the journey, whether you've read the story before or this is your first time as well. You can teach me a lot, and I am happy to lay out what I don't know here on the show so that we can all learn. So that reopens a question for me of whether or not he will ever return to Monte Cristo. If he was learning the yacht and how to improve it, then does that mean he's just going to be kind of a nomad character who puts on disguises? I don't know. Anyway, fascinating stuff as we head into chapter 27 here. Join me here tomorrow as we continue further down the rabbit hole of what Caderousse has to say about all of these characters we haven't seen in such a long time. So until then, okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.